Welcome back to Stooge Stream. I am your host, the Stooge, and we're doing another 9 PS2 hidden gems slash games you should own in your collection. Now, if you haven't seen the first video, go through my video history. There's a few hidden gems, games you should own videos there, including another PS2 one. But let's kick this episode off, and we're going to start with a series you don't hear enough about anymore. The first two games were actually a lot of fun, and they're remarkably cheap. A lot of gameplay, lots of hours, heaps of unlockables, and that is XMen Legends. If you like your beat 'em up slash dungeon crawlers, and you like RPG elements to those games where you get to upgrade your characters, unlock more and more characters, this is a lot of fun. And there was 2 games in the series, well worth picking up. You can see my copy's a bit dirty from stickers. I'll clean that up eventually or swap the case over, but great game, and definitely something you should have. Lots of hours of fun in that game. A game that I just picked up because I like classic games, and turns out it's actually really, really good, but I've never heard anyone talk about it, and that's Space Invaders Invasion Day. Now, this is a reboot of the Space Invaders franchise. It turns it into a 3D mode, a 3D game with a story mode, but it still plays exactly the same as Space Invaders. As you can maybe make out in that little picture there, you can see them crawling down towards the guy at the bottom of the screen. So it is a Space Invaders style shooter, but in 3D with a survival mode and a story mode. It's extremely cheap, and it's actually a lot of fun. This is a game that, again, nobody ever talks about, but is well worth checking out. And it's cheap as nuts. Let me just pull the camera back a little bit to give me a bit more room there. Onto some action games. There's a huge quantity of action games on the PS2 or Xbox 360. It seemed to very much be the generation for it. And there was a few that came out that really didn't get the attention that they deserved later on. Now, this got a lot of hype at the time and then kind of just disappeared from the world. And that's Jet Li's Rise to Honor. Now, this is a fantastic martial arts based action game with motion capture from Jet Li himself, so you get like a bunch of his actual movement style in the game. Great beat 'em up, great fun, and extremely cheap because everyone kind of just forgot about it. It does have a unique control system that takes a little while to get used to, but once you do, it's almost like a twin stick shooter, but it's a twin stick martial arts game. Well worth checking out. Plus, Jet Li, come on. You can't really talk about the PS2 era and action games without bringing up at least one of these. This was very synonymous with the console. Fantastic series. It's still going to this day, and we're talking about the God of War games. So these are cheap as. If you haven't played God of War 1 and 2 yet, you just kind of really should get your hands on them. The PSP exclusives are fantastic as well, but puzzles, action, adventure, massive boss fights, quick time events that you don't hate. No, seriously, quick time events that you don't hate, that are actually fun and kind of rewarding because you get a great animation sequence once it's done. God of War takes elements of history and mythology and just makes a great action adventure game out of it. And if you haven't played any of the God of War games, you're really missing out. They're cheap and they're really fun. In that sort of vein is a game that you do hear inklings about from time to time. And in fact, somebody actually commented on this in my last video about PS2 hidden gems, games you should own, and said this one was a great one. I totally agree. And kind of in that same vein is Spartan Total Warrior. This was by Sega. It is their God of War clone, but it is really, really good. The action is great. The graphics are fantastic. The setting is great. Story's pretty interesting. It's a great, fun title that you can pick up for, I got it for $6. in Australia. Take 30% off that if you're in the US, but usually you can find this lying around for a few bucks here and there. I just went screw it and paid the $6 and got it. So what happens when a whole bunch of developers from your studio leave and form another studio? Well, that's what happened to Rare after GoldenEye. A bunch of developers left and formed a company called Free Radical. The game that everybody talks about from Free Radical is, of course, Timesplitters 2. No, I didn't pay $10 for it. I think I paid like $4. Timesplitters 2 is a fantastic shooter. Very much in the vein of GoldenEye. I mean, just look at the graphics. It looks like GoldenEye, except it fixes a lot of the problems that GoldenEye had. It's still very playable. It still looks and holds up quite decently. It's a fun adventure through time. The story is crazy and funny and weird, and the action is great, and the multiplayer is still really fun. If you've got a multi-tap, or you've just got one other friend, even split-screen multiplayer, 2 players in this is so good. Well worth getting your hands on. The price is slowly going up on this one, but it's still worth getting. Timesplitters 2 is great. Now, the PS2 was home to a lot of platform games as well. So your 3D platformers were well represented on the console with the likes of your Crash Bandicoots and Spyros and all of that. But there were a few that kind of fell through the cracks in that generation that people have forgotten about, that were fantastic games that you really should play, and they're cheap as. A series that fits that description perfectly is the Pac-Man World games. There was 3 of these. Now, this is taking the classic Pac-Man character and putting it more into a 3D platform adventure game, a la your Crash Bandicoots and so forth. All 3 of these games are really well made, are really fun, and even coming forward, the Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventure platform games are actually quite decent. They're not as good as the Pac-Man World games, but they're not too bad. I've got one of them on the Wii U. Still a lot of fun, but Pac-Man World 1, 2, and 3 are definitely games that you should be keeping your eyes out for. They're usually quite cheap, and if you like platformers, you will really enjoy these. Now, everybody knows this series, but the originals are very cheap on the PS2. Very, very cheap, and well worth playing. And of course, Ratchet Clank. Any of the Ratchet Clank games are fantastic action platformers. Great fun, great humor, made by Insomniac, so you know that there's quality involved. Any ones that you can get, these are usually a few dollars each on the PS2 these days because they've been re-released so many times over and over and over. So if you've got a PS2, they're definitely worth adding to the collection. If you don't have like the PS3 collection re-releases or anything else, you really should have at least the originals in your collection. They are just ridiculous fun. And finally, a hidden gem I've only recently picked up. Now, there was a Super Nintendo game, I should say, that I played, rented from the local video shop, and then I ended up buying. Then when I sold my Super Nintendo game as a kid, that was one of the first games I bought when I rebought a Super Nintendo. And this was very much in that vein. The game I'm talking about on the Super Nintendo is the Firefighters. And the game I'm talking about on PS2 is Firefighters FD18. Now, it kind of plays like a 3D version of The Fireman. Sorry, it was called The Fireman in the Super Nintendo game. And you're a firefighter and you put out fires with your hose. You have an axe to break doors down, and you save people from burning buildings. That's pretty much the gist of the game, and it sounds like, well, that kind of sounds boring. Why would I want to play that? It's actually really, really fun. It's a well-designed game that's kind of puzzly and platformy and adventure-y, but not all at the same time, that makes its own sort of thing out of what should have been a very limited experience, but works really well. It's quite addictive. It's very fun. The screenshots on the back do it no justice because the cover is just fucking terrible, and I can see why people skip this. But I'm so glad to have it in my collection because it really is a hidden gem on the system. And if you like weirder, stranger games and want to give something different a try, I'd very, 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 very much recommend Firefighter FD18. So there is another 9, count them, 9 PS2 hidden gems slash games you should own. So we've got XMen Legends, Space Invaders, Invasion Day, Rise to Honor, God of War, Spartan Total Warrior, Timesplitters 2, Pac-Man World 2, Ratchet Clank 2, Locked and Loaded, and Firefighter FD18. Make sure you check out my first Hidden Gems video as well, and let me know what I've missed. What games do you consider PS2 Hidden Gems, games that people absolutely should own? Comment below. Let me know. I always want to see what you guys think. What haven't I put in my list yet? And keep in mind, I do have hundreds of PS2 games, so there will be more of these coming in future. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment below, like, share, subscribe, all those good things. And don't forget, adventure, excitement. Stooge craves not these things. Welcome to the Stooge Revolution.